Close the warrant when we have articles on it.
So she wants us to just close it. She
Okay.
has a warrant with
Okay.
articles on it.
Thank you, Scott. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and open the meeting. Today is Monday, March 11th. It is currently 6:05 PM, and we are at the Paxton Public Safety Complex. This is a meeting of the Board of Selectmen. We just have a couple of quick items to get through before we start the actual budget presentation from BayPath. And so there's just a couple of consent items and then one quick item, and then we will move forward with the BayPath presentation. We do have a hard stop tonight so that we can get over to the caucus for 7 o'clock. All right, so bear with me. All right, so on the consent agenda, we have 5 items. I'm going to go ahead and review those. Number 1 is to approve the meeting minutes from the regular meeting held on February 26, 2024. Number 2 is to approve the meeting minutes from the executive meeting held on February 26, 2024. Number 3 is to appoint Heather Monroe to the Worcester Regional Transit Authority Board through June 30th, 2024. Number 4 is to appoint Michael Hinckley as a part-time public safety officer. And number 5 is to close the warrant for the annual town meeting to be held on May 6, 2024, and that's just closing to new incoming articles. We will vote on the articles to be on the warrant at a later date. That's what you were looking for, right, Heather? Okay. So, assuming that all is appropriate, are there any objections to any of the consent items?
No.
Nope.
All right, I declare that they have all been approved. Number 1 on new business is to award sole source procurement in accordance with Chapter 30B, Section 7 for IT services to Suzer IT for the amount of $44,550 for FY '25, July 1st, 2024 to June 30th, 2025. This was originally in the consent agenda. I asked that it be pulled out and put into new business because we had previously pulled it out and put it into new business when we discussed it before. As a brief update, I did have a meeting with Charlie Blanchard and Suzer IT to go over some of the issues that were being experienced in town. We believe we've gotten to the bottom of most of those issues, and we have a plan in place moving forward in order to try to improve our IT services and make sure that everything is functional and we start having some less headaches in terms of IT. I believe it's a good plan to go forward, and I would recommend that we go ahead and award them the contract. So I'd be looking for a motion with that in mind.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
No.
Hearing no discussion, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. All right, so that's all of our regular business. So I'd invite BayPath up. We have their annual budget presentation, which is teed up on the TV. And I do have, Peter is here in person, and I have Jeff Wenzel on with us by Zoom. So Jeff, let me get you to a place where you can actually see what's going
I
on.
can see y'all. Thanks very much.
There you
Thanks for
go.
accommodating.
Okay. All right.
All
Peter
right.
Rip.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Kyle Brenner, the proud superintendent of BayPath Regional Vocational and Technical High School. This evening, I have Irene Hool, our business manager, and Principal Dean Packard with me as well. So thank you for having us. And we're going to present our FY25 budget. So the funding sources for the budget, Chapter 70 and Chapter 71 estimates are based on the governor's budget submitted January 25th, 2024. The estimated Chapter 70 funding for FY25 is $14,453,612. The estimated Chapter 71 funding for FY25 is $1,308,294. These are preliminary estimates subject to change as the House and Senate deliberate on the budget. So this slide shows the impact on BayPath. We show FY25 proposed and FY24. Our Chapter 70 has increased by $234,332. The minimum contributions has increased $530,546. And our required net school spending has increased overall by $764,878. So again, the FY '25, or presenting the FY '25 total budget for assessment is $29,173,197. Our member towns' assessments are at the minimum. Our budget includes a debt service assessment of $1,552,023, and our operational budget does not require funds above the minimum contributions by our member communities, for a total member assessment of $12,932,626. Although the assessments are at the minimum, it's important to note that the required minimum contributions that each town must contribute have increased collectively by $530,546. Our member town's transportation assessment has been reduced by $600,000, reflecting the use of our regional transportation reimbursement fund. So the financial highlights shown here: total Chapter 70 revenue of $14,453,612. Our school choice assessment of $296,335. Our Chapter 71 busing aid of $1,308,294. We propose using $75,000 from our excess and deficiency to continue to fund our OPEB liability on that. That's an increase of $25,000 last year. So we're continuing that trend of $75,000. And we're proposing using $100,000 from our excess and deficiency to fund the net school spending obligation as well next year. The next slide shows the FY '25 budget summary. So our operational total budget is $25,558,056. That's comprised of the Chapter 70, which is $14,453,612. We subtract out our school choice assessment of $296,335, and we add in the minimum contribution assessment of $11,225,779, and our OPEB and net school spending $75,000 and $100,000 respectively. Our total transportation budget for next year is $2,063,118. We put in our transportation reimbursement fund and subtract that out from the Chapter 70, subtract that out, as well as subtract out the $1,308,294, and that leaves a total assessment of $154,824 for our 10 towns. Our debt service shows our principal, $820,000, and our interest, $732,023. So again, second year in a row, our principal is above our interest, and that'll continue to go down. Buy-in assessment is zero, and our sewer betterment fee is zero. So our FY '25 budget for assessment is $29,173,197. Add back in our school choice assessment, and our total operating budget with school choice is $29,469,532, or a proposed budget of $29,173,197. So our budget highlights. FY '25 budget includes the addition of a full-time equivalent for an assistant principal position. That'll be our first full assistant principal position. We'll add a vocational aide for one of our 23 vocational programs, add an intern for our IT department. Significant addition is a one-to-one initiative for our student technology devices and associated software that goes along with that. So providing a device to each one of our 1,200 students on that. It includes wage increases in accordance with our recently negotiated collective bargaining agreements, and it includes an increased cost for our transportation that had to go out to bid this year. So we see an increase in our transportation costs as well. And the first time in a long time, an 8% increase in our health insurance premiums. Other budget highlights: we continue to use our SOA funds, which is baked into our foundational budget now, to provide significant professional development to all our staff, especially programs focused on social-emotional learning, our English learners, and chronic absenteeism. The use of the SOA funds are to provide programs to meet the needs of our most vulnerable groups to close that achievement gap. It also provides for a professional grounds contract for our fields. Our fields are currently experiencing 4 times the required daily usage on those. So we had a master study done for all our athletic facilities, and there's 2 alternatives: just putting in a synthetic turf game field, which will significantly take some of the burden off of our grass fields, practice fields, and soccer fields on that. That alone, the turf field, would be about $2.9 million. And to totally do our fields over, the full build-out, and add additional multi-purpose fields for practices in the games would be closer to $8 million on that. So we're currently assessing funding alternatives for that, but in the meantime, we need to provide some professional grounds for our turf fields, our natural turf fields, to bring those back for the play on that. It provides text for our vocational programming. You can see the number of different programs that are looking at new text there: advanced manufacturing, animal science, auto tech, our business, entrepreneurship and marketing program, culinary, dental, CAD, health tech, ISSN, metal fab, programming, and web dev, as well as some significant shop equipment updates to our cabinet making: a CNC miller control, a surface grinder, a CNC router, and a dust collector that goes along with that. In our culinary department, a rotating bake oven and a new freezer. And for our metal fab, new virtual welding. The virtual welding reduces potential for accidents, knock on wood, we haven't had accidents, and it also reduces cost of materials. Students can use this. It's the new virtual welding. The older ones used to develop gross motor skills, and the newer ones, they can actually learn some fine motor skills before they actually pick up the actual torch and welding rods on that. So we're looking forward to that. And a SimMan for our health tech program. A SimMan is a real, or not real, a virtual mannequin that you can simulate different scenarios on a heart attack or different pains and aches on that. So that'll give a real-world experience to our health tech students as well. The next portion is our freshman seat allocation. So we have 325 seats available for our incoming freshman class. We used the capital population of our 10 towns, total that to 17,747, and then we calculate the ratio for each one of our 10 towns. You can see those there. And for Paxton, that's a 4.05%. And 4.05 times 325 is 13 seats we allocate to the town of Paxton.
So haven't had any seats.
Foundation enrollment, was there a question? Sorry. Oh, all right. Foundation enrollment is used to assess our capital debt and our transportation as well. So here, foundation enrollment are school age, or the number of students enrolled at Bay Path, for a total of 1,243. Paxton foundation enrollment for FY25 is 40 total students, which is 14.29%, and that 40 is up 5 from last year. In the town of Paxton foundation enrollment, Wachusett Regional School District, FY25 is 617 students. Last year was 642, so that's a decrease of 25 students. In Bay Path, this year, projected next year is 40 students, and that's up 5 from last year. And now, the assessments. Required local contribution, you can see the current FY24 is $5,293,757. The municipal revenue growth factor is 3.37% this year for FY25 preliminary local contribution of $5,472,157. The excess shortfall local effort is $52,938. So the FY25 required local contribution is $5,525,095. In the FY25 foundation budget apportionment based on the percentages are shown below. So the Wachusett Regional School District is 90.46%, and Bay Path comprises 9.54% on that. So the FY '25 total required contribution is $5,525,095. This amount is spread among our 10-town districts based upon the foundation budget apportionment. For Bay Path, that's 9.54%, and that's a 1.35% increase over last year. And down below, you can see Bay Path FY '25 is $527,148. And that's a $93,641 increase over FY '24. School attending children report. Our towns have found this useful. We go back since we started recording it, and you can see the year over year as well as the change since the school year 2012 to school year 2022-23. So Paxton has an increase of 17 school-aged children over the last year. Overall, over the 10, it's down 44. Our district has a 22, our 10-town district has 22 student decrease school-aged children. And over the course of our study, it's 1,700 students in all 10 towns. Foundation school-aged children numbers are all important because that's how we calculate, in agreement with our district agreement, the assessments for each one of our towns. So minimum contributions, you can see a total of $11,225,779. The foundation enrollment for Paxton equates to 3.22%. Right, so that equates to $527,148. Transportation assessment, total of $154,824 for our 10 towns. Paxton is 4.05% of that, which equates to $4,982. And our debt service is total $1,522,023, and Paxton's portion of that is $62,878 for a total assessment of $595,009. And we break that out just for the town of Paxton on the next slide there. You can see the increases over last year and this year. So minimum contribution has gone up $93,641 or 21.6%. Transportation has gone up $899 or 22.02%, and debt service has gone up $1,504 or 2.45%, and the total increase for the assessment this year is $96,044 or 19.25%. And I thank you for your continued support and prepared to answer any questions.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys always come in and do a nice, concise presentation. It's very appreciated.
Thank you.
It looks to me like nearly the entirety of the increase is related to minimum local contribution, which you have no control over.
Right.
I mean, I think that's the story here.
It is, it is.
And it looks like you are still managing to do some important, take care of some important initiatives within that. So absolutely appreciate that you're working within that MLC.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Any other
Thank you.
questions?
Well stated.
No, thank you. Thank you so much for presenting.
Excellent.
Any questions from?
Yeah, I got a couple.
Sure.
Are you able to go to the
Sure.
to the PowerPoint presentation on page 17?
Sure.
Which
That's- Okay.
Give the turtles.
All right.
So do I have this right? So on page 17, across the top, you've got minimum contribution. Then in the middle of the page, transportation.
Mhm.
Then a little bit further on to the right, debt service. and then capital improvement, nothing.
Right.
So the question to be asked is, why nothing? Is something being deferred? Is there something around the corner in the next year or two that's going to change that particular column? Or what's the nature of it being zero now?
Capital improvement has been zero for the years that I've been there. So we don't have a sewer the sewer betterment came off of that. So that came off year before last, the sewer betterment and the,
So my point is, it's nice to see the zero. The question is there something in the future that's not going to be zeros?
well, the only thing that's on our radar right now would be the athletic field upgrades, which, again, there was a solar proposal on the table to see if we couldn't offset the cost of that through revenue from solar. That proposal was done in 2018, and the incentives have significantly changed since 2018. So preliminary review of the 2018 proposal that was done indicates that the solar wouldn't be a viable option. I think 40% of the incentives have gone away since that. We're a national grid territory, so that takes that off. The net metering is off of that. But back when that was done in 2018, there was significant revenue to be had in incentives that could have offset a large portion of the athletic field upgrades on it. But through permitting of a solar field, I'm struggling for the kilowatt. It was about a 23-acre solar field. Permitting for that got tied up, and the town of Charlton changed their bylaws on it, and that's what delayed it. So we couldn't take advantage of that. So that's the only known capital improvement, knock on wood, that we see. We are in the process. We just started advertising for our stakeholders to sign up for our strategic plan, which will be a look at our plan over the next 3 years on that. And we'll see if any capital improvements come out of that. But we're blessed with a fairly newly renovated school, and we're at capacity now. So our plan will tell us if we need anything and what kind of capital improvements we'll be looking at, but nothing on the radar right now.
Yep.
We are looking at alternative funding for the athletic field before, but I want to float that out because the time is coming that we're going to have to address that. Those are the original fields, so they're over 50 years old.
Yeah. So back on your slides, if you can go back to pages 8, 9, and 10, obviously not all three at the same time, but those were your budget highlights.
Mhm.
So as finance committee members, we're accustomed to see a dollar amount assigned to that. Likely you don't have that information this evening, but can you get us that particular information? What is the assistant principal costing? What's the vocational aid costing?
Sure.
What are you got collective bargaining agreements, which we totally understand, but at what percentage? Health insurance is up 8%, but 8% of what, and what's the increase, and so on and so forth on pages 8, 9, and 10. I think we'd enjoy having that dollarized detail.
Yep. We can get those for
I
you.
know this is a highlight PowerPoint presentation, so it's likely they wouldn't be in that, but we'd nevertheless like to see it.
Sure. We have those numbers. We get those to you.
And the last question I have is, I need to be fifth grade educated here in terms of, it's a nice story that the budget didn't go up, other than the minimum contribution, which your hands are tied to do anything on that. But can you explain exactly what that translates to? Because it's obviously an increase that's being passed on to us. So how is it that it can't be altered or changed, or you have no say in that. Can you describe minimum contribution, I guess, a little bit more basically?
So
For me anyways.
I'll give you my definition of it, and then our business manager can chime in if I'm wrong on it. But it's minimum local contribution is calculated by the state on, how much each town has to provide in the foundation budget, what portion of that is allocated to the towns on it. A large portion of that was the, let me look at exactly what it's called, the municipal revenue growth factor. So I believe that's gone up for Paxton, so that accounts for a large increase.
So,
on that.
so, excuse me for interrupting, but would it be safe to say that if your budget didn't go up, that the minimum contribution required of each town would be less?
No,
No.
No.
no, that's not how that works.
So,
No.
so how, again, I'm missing something here.
So our budget did go up,
Yes.
So how that's allocated through the towns and how much each town is required to fund is the foundational budget on that. And so again, the municipal revenue growth factor is 3.37. I don't know how they calculate that. I think it's a proportion based on the town's status, financial status, as well as property values and right?
So I'm going to back up just a little bit. The state establishes the foundation budget for each town, and there's this complicated formula where they say you're going to get so many dollars per student in grade K.
I'm going to stop you just for a second so we can get you a mic.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, there's one right behind you.
We can hear you a bit.
We want to make sure everybody watching.
Okay, no problem. So the state establishes the foundation budget with a somewhat complicated formula, and they determine that for every student in certain categories, you're going to get X number of dollars. And, first, one of the breakdowns is the age. So you get a certain amount for students in grade K, and then a different amount for every student that's in grades, 1 to 5 or 1 to 6, and then a different amount for middle school students, another amount for every student who's in high school, and a separate amount for high school students who are in vocational or Chapter 4. So if your high school has some Chapter 74 program, even those students, in addition to the ones coming to Bay Path, are counted as vocational, and you get a certain number of dollars per. They then go further than that and say, we're also going to give you money for every student who's in SPED, who has an IEP. And we're going to give you a certain amount of student money for every student who's considered an English language learner, and a certain amount of money for every student who's in, considered low income. So they use this complicated formula, and they say, okay, your town with this population and X number of students in each one of those categories I just mentioned, your foundation budget, which is the minimum you must spend to provide a free and fair, those are the state's words, education, is X. And then every year they say, okay, here was your budget from last year, and here is what we consider your municipal revenue growth factor, how much additional money you're going to need to continue providing a free and fair education to your students. For Paxton, that was 3.37%. It varies by town. Yours went up this much. I think we've got one town that was lower. Most of the others were higher. Then what they say is, gee, what we would like to see is for your towns to be providing a certain percentage of the budget. And if you go all the way back to the 1990s, when they first did ed reform, the state did say that no town will ever pay more than 82.5%. The state will always give a minimum Chapter 70 of 17.5%. If they feel that you're not providing quite enough percentage of that foundation budget, that's what that excess shortfall local effort is. This year, every single town had a quote shortfall, and the state was adding money to their minimum required contributions, saying, you guys can afford this, we want you to get closer to the percentage that we would like you to be providing. In other years, there have been one or two towns where there's actually been a negative number there saying, oh, you don't have to spend quite that much, usually related to the incomes. So again, that municipal revenue growth factor is based on your property valuations, which is where your taxes come from. And also the state does look at the information from the Department of Revenue. You know, what are the salaries or household incomes look like in your town? So that's where that comes from. Does that help? You want more questions or more information?
Well, it helps.
There's actually there was a meeting recently at Wachusett where they went into a whole explanation of the foundation budget. And that is available, it's recorded and available, I think, online.
Okay.
If anybody wants to watch it, I think it's probably a good explanation as well. Not that you didn't do a lovely job just now, but this is probably a little more detailed.
Oh, right, and it would show you, in other words, I told you it's a complicated formula, and I
Very much.
listed everything, but that will actually show you that, so that's going across the top. Coming down the bottom, it's also dollars per type of function. It's not just a single number. It's, okay, for every K student, you get X dollars for admin, for teachers, for the building, for custodial. I mean, it just goes on down the line. So to be able to actually see it versus trying to remember what I'm saying is, yeah, it's definitely helpful.
Yeah.
And I can do it off the top of my head because I've sat down and looked at these a whole lot of times over the last 5 years.
I'm sure. Sure.
Thank you.
And just to clarify, all of the items that were on pages 8, 9, and 10 that were the budget highlights, all of those items are being funded within your minimum local contributions, correct?
It is.
Yeah.
Yes.
So even if those items weren't on there, your budget numbers would stay the same?
They
correct?
would.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions? All right.
All right.
Thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks all. Thanks for the good questions. Take care. Good night.
Thanks, Jeff.
You bet. Thank you.
All right. So with that, I'm going to ask for a motion, unless there is anything further, because we need to get moving. Let's just see where we're at here. Select board correspondence, I have none. Heather, we have a couple minutes if you have a town administrator's report you'd like to give.
I can just do a high level. I don't have anything written for tonight. We have been working on getting materials for the FinCom, including looking at a override calculator with the numbers. I should have that to Larissa and Donna by midday tomorrow for them to double, quadruple check everything I did to make sure I didn't miss anything and it makes sense. I'm still working on a presentation for FinCom for Wednesday to kind of go over the large numbers. Just a short presentation, but visuals.
Thursday.
Oh, yeah, well, sorry. I knew it was on Thursday, but, yeah, so on Thursday, otherwise I'll present to myself. To go over those major pieces of the numbers. I've been working with departments on the budget in general, trying to keep everyone informed of those pieces. A couple resident issues past a couple days, so working on those pieces. And otherwise, just trying to start getting ready for annual town meeting, and also working on the outstanding grants that are out there from working with Cindy on the ADA, circling back to the Tiverton Field Lights this week. Should have an update on that for next week and so forth. So kind of wrapping up loose ends as we're getting to the end of the fiscal.
Okay, great. Any questions for Heather?
No, thanks.
All right. Any public comment? None? Hearing none? All right, going once, going twice? Okay. So with that, I'm going to ask that we go ahead and adjourn, and we will move to the town caucus over at the school.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.